Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. So India has been seeing a staggering growth in its GDP and it has grown at a rate of 8.4% in the last quarter of 2023. This is a massive growth, but given the unemployment rates and the layoffs that is happening recently, is this really true? Well, we'll be discussing about few main points why this kind of GDP growth has been seen as a major concern. So let's get into it. So if you look at the news, it has been shown that in the quarter 3 of 2023, the GDP has grown at a rate of 8.4%, and it is expected that it will be growing at 7.6% in the financial year 2024. But the question is how the GDP is first calculated. So I found this article on Investopedia which talks about the calculation of GDP. So it says that GDP is calculated through real GDP and the nominal GDP as well. But if you look at the nominal GDP, how it is calculated, it is the total value of goods and services which are produced within a specific economy. So if you want to know everything in detail, you can go through this article, but most of the time this calculation is done based on the organized sector in the country. But in India, this is actually a major concern because most of the people are engaged in the unorganized sector about which we do not have specific data. And most of the time, when the GDP calculation is done, the data that we have from the organized sector is actually considered for the unorganized sector as well, which is not at all the correct way of calculating GDP. So I found this article which talks about the unorganized sector. And here we can see how much difference is there in between the organized and unorganized sector in India. So if we look at this particular paragraph, we'll see that the unorganized sector employs 94% of the workers and produces 45% of the output. But when we calculate the GDP, we are mostly looking at the organized sector's data. Moreover, after looking at these numbers, we can also say that the organized sector is actually growing at a rapid pace. Hence, the growth rate is more. Moreover, it is also taking the market share from the unorganized sector as well. So, concluding this point, it is more logical to say that the organized sector is the sector that is growing at 8.4%. But it is considered that the whole GDP, the organized and the unorganized sectors cumulatively is growing at 8.4%, which is a flawed statement in itself. Okay, so the second point that I wanted to discuss was I found from this article which talks about the difference between the GDP and the GVA. But first, let's understand what GVA actually means. So if we look at the Investopedia definition, we'll see that this is a metric that measures the contribution of corporate subsidiaries, companies, municipality, etc. to economy. And if we look at the formula for GVA is actually GDP plus subsidies on products minus the taxes on the products. But if we look at this article, we'll see that the difference between GDP and GVA is nearly 2%. And this gap is actually highest reported in the past 10 years, which is actually a major concern. But according to the economists, the difference between the GVA and the GDP should not exceed 1%. And this kind of gap also raises concerns about the calculations of GDP. And the third point that I wanted to discuss comes from this interview of Pranab Sen. Well, in case you don't know, Pranab Sen is former member of Planning Commission, and he talks a lot about the consumption rate in India, which has been weakening for the last few years. So the consumption growth rate recently had been 3.5%, which is actually an alarming situation. In case you are interested, you can watch the whole interview on the Wire website. But in simple words, without a healthy consumption, the growth rate of the economy can't sustain. And this is a clear concern in India because if we see the difference between the wealth distribution, there is a staggering difference between the rich and the poor. Most of the nation's wealth approximately 40% of the nation's wealth is actually concentrated into the 1% individuals in India. And this is a major concern for the consumption rate because that 1% people are not actually spending a lot of money, which is again diverted into in the form of investments. Hence, the consumption rates need to be increased, and this can only be done when more people are getting higher paid jobs and they are spending more money towards the economic growth. But are people getting high paying jobs? Well, given the unemployment rates and the layoffs that is happening recently, this is not at all true. So the solution for this is more and more people should be getting more high paying jobs, and hence this will lead into the increase of the consumption growth. So these were the three main points which are a major concern towards the GDP growth rate that has been provided recently. Moreover, the future projections that have been provided, which are around 7 to 8%, are also not true given all these 3 points that I have discussed in this video. So do let me know what you think about the GDP growth rate problem, or if you even feel that this is a problem. So that's it for today's video. See you in the next one.